Hi, everybody, and welcome to The Artful Soul. I'm Rachel from Workshop Muse, and here in The Artful Soul, we're going to be looking at inspiration and big ideas for healing, reflection, and learning through the arts. And I'm so excited today because we've got Kayla Huszar with us, and in the background, out of shot right now, but potentially coming in, is her 9-week-old baby Isaac. So welcome to Kayla and Isaac in the background. We're
Thank
so
you
happy
for having us.
Yeah, we're happy to have you both here. Like babies. That's who doesn't need more babies in the world? Well, I don't need more babies, but we need more babies, like, gurgling in the background while mothers are doing their thing. So we're happy to have you, Kayla. So let me just introduce Kayla. Kayla's a registered social worker and an expressive art therapist doing therapy in an atypical way. Couch sitting need not apply. She's a wife, a mom, both human and fur, obviously, and she's a self-taught hobbyist photographer, and her most joyous days are spent in the forest contemplating her place in the world. She believes in art and creative expression as a way to communicate and heal. And today, Kayla and I are going to talk about transformation through the arts and how art can support you through life transitions and transformations. Obviously, Kayla has the mothering aspect that she's in the throes of a transformation and welcoming a new little one to her family, but it's also an area where she works. So Kayla, tell us about your transformation world and what that means to you in with the arts.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. I just love working with women. And especially in this transition time of becoming a mom. So like you said, I've got a 9-week-old. I've also got a 4-year-old. So transitioning and transformation is just such a powerful part of this phase of life and many other phases. But what I am so passionate about is that in this particular transition from becoming woman to mother, or woman, wife, mother, whatever the transition there for people is that, there's so many transformations happening in ourselves, in our lives, to our bodies, like physically. And I love breaking that down and debriefing it with people, and it affects why I work with moms is just that there's not one aspect of your life that is untouched. When you become a mom. Everything changes. And I was actually just talking to someone about this last week, that you don't necessarily understand the gravity of that until you're in it. And then when you're in it, you're like, oh, now I get what everyone was telling me about.
Totally, right? Yeah. And for people who are watching this that maybe are like way past the baby days and are like, it may be an empty nest or other sorts of things. When I think about transformation, and when we think about transformation and the arts coming together, like the way that you just described that transition into becoming a mother, where you're kind of like being reformed, you're becoming somebody new. The who you were before is no longer, and you have to move and step into something new. And I think that becoming a mother, I think grief, I think any kind of loss, I think, like I said, empty nest, I think divorce, I think, all of these like pretty huge health stuff, right? Like I work all the time with people who have like chronic health conditions, and the person they once were is no longer physically, mentally, emotionally. And as we know, this like spiral of life where we're constantly becoming and unbecoming and coming and unbecoming, it's to me, that's where the arts can support us, and where maybe each one of those transitions. And although you're focusing on mothering with people becoming new mothers, like that wheel that we spin through around coming back and reforming and shedding old parts of ourselves is something we're going to be doing for our whole lives, right?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I love to say to people, because I love my target in how I want people to be open to the arts is in this new mom phase, but also like once postpartum, always postpartum. Like your kids are always changing. You are always changing. Like you said, you touched on some beautiful things there that just like happen in life, and all of that. You're constantly shedding the old version of you and kind of like welcoming a new.
Mm-hmm. So why the arts then, right? Like, how does that fit with the arts? Because I think if we were having this conversation in other circles, people would be like, oh, lots of transitions, lots of transformation. So like why would we turn towards our art in times of transformation? Or why would we use, go to an art therapist or those sorts of things?
Oh, I think there's so much that's untapped inside of us. And when we're going through a significant life event, I feel like there's so many like moving parts to it that when we can put that in color and shape onto something, into something, make a piece of sculpture, um, it's a different kind of communication, and it's a different kind of way to kind of process, when someone asks, let's say a mom, new, old, seasoned, whatever, how they are, what's the answer? Often
Right.
it's fine, surviving, getting by, making it through, doing the best that I can. And oh man, the arts can give you so much more than that. It can open up so many more things, so many more words can
Right.
come when you allow yourself the time and the space to say, I need to process this in a different way. I need to
Right.
experience this in a different way. I need to honor this in a different way.
Yeah, because you're in it. I love what you're saying too, where it's like you're in it, and whether you want to be or not, change is constantly coming to us, and we're constantly transforming. And so when you're in it, like depending on what's happening, there can be some sense making that can happen. And, people will have, social supports or, more formal supports, or they'll journal, or they'll go back to their kind of, things, or they'll lose them. But the idea that you can't sometimes, well, there's many things in this world that are so complex and require our bodies and our minds and our hearts and our souls that we can't put language to, right? And so when language fails us, either because we don't know how to say it or express it, or we haven't made sense of it yet, right? Because that's the other thing, is we might have like these complex knots inside of us, and we need to kind of like undo the knot. But what's the process to do that? Because many people go to talk therapy or those sorts of things, and sometimes they can undo knots, but other times they're like, somebody asked me how I'm feeling, and I'm like, I don't know, I didn't even have the language to talk to you about how I'm feeling, right? So that's where we like shape, line, color, texture, like we start to like touch the knots in new ways, right? And smooth them out, and then we can start to look at them in new ways, right?
Absolutely. And um, someone might be able to unknot that in a different way, especially when we're talking about doing something creative like on your own, or participating in something online, or doing something in person. It's like the witnessing part of that in the art is, I feel like, so profound that it's just a beautiful thing to be able to have someone else say, hey, did you think about it in this way? Or,
Mm-hmm.
hey, what does this line intersection kind of mean? Or if you were to be in this picture, where would you be?
Right.
And what would be your point of view?
Right.
And what would all of that that stuff, what would that mean? And I feel like there's so much for women. I feel like there's such beauty in creating something and have another person witness it. Like, you maybe not even at the time, but after, when you're brave enough and you show your friend your art journal or the thing that you've been working on, and they go, wow, that's really cool. It gives it, I feel like it's a larger way to validate even how we're feeling, especially
Mm-hmm.
when we're doing like an art practice on our own at our kitchen tables. That art is validating how we're feeling. And I think that is really powerful, because in life, with all the people who I've met or worked with, that's all they want. They just want someone to see them and hear them and to say, wow, that is an experience. And wow, I'm going to sit with you in that. And you know
Yeah.
what? art's going to sit with you. It is always going to sit with you in that. And it's not going to judge. It's not going to fix it. It's not going to do any of those things. It's just going to witness those knots, those things that are happening.
And I love what you're talking about with witnessing, because I kind of have talked about it in some of these conversations, but what you and I and other people who work like formally in the therapeutic arts or the healing arts know is that witnessing piece is so key, right? So what's so tricky in this online world and those sorts of things is to like find ways for people to safely be witnessed, right? Because creating and expressing, like taking that knot, that grief knot, that uncertain knot, that transformation that you're going through, and, you know, expressing it in shape, line, color, or words or texture, or whatever medium comes to you. There's that experience of being like, okay, I maybe don't even know. I put it on page and I still don't maybe even know. I don't know, why did I choose that color? Why did I make that line? What is that word about? Why was I attracted to that object? So then there's like, that's like level one sense making, is to like put it all out there, like take it, the knot here, and then put it out where you can look at it. And then like the next level of sense making is to like work through verbalizing, making sense, like in your cognitive part of your being, talking about it. And that happens through witnessing. Unfortunately, that's the part of things that you can't really do at your kitchen table alone, right? Like sometimes you can turn to your art journal and it can be a place of solace and you can work through things. But the next piece of it around having somebody that you trust, that you can like share with, that is so key. And that's a piece where I'm always trying to like create safety in online worlds and those sorts of things, so that people can like, or asking people like, could you share this with your friend or your husband, or like who could you talk to that could just talk this through with you and won't be like, that's a really ugly tree, you know, like somebody who gets that like the tree is there for something else than that, right? But I mean, I really want to always encourage people to lean into what we call the witnessing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Tell us a story of witnessing, like where you've seen somebody, because you run mom groups where you get people to like make art and then they like share. Do you have like just, or even an example or something, what that looks like? Put you on the spot.
Several. Okay, so it's more of a theme that I'm thinking, not a particular example. Is that when we gather and we participate in this communal kind of art making, supporting each other, what happens is that I hear things like, wow, that is it. You just put words or image to exactly how I was feeling. Or you know, when I was struggling with that man, that just like, you just said it perfectly. Or wow, I didn't know that other people feel that same way. Or I didn't realize, you know, we in our modern culture, we're farther away from the people who would naturally support us. We live further away from parents or from siblings or family. And so naturally, organically, there are not these conversations happening that are like, oh yeah, no, that's normal. Or, oh yeah, that is to be expected. Or that isn't, like, that, you know, and I would seek additional help for something like that. But in the witnessing, there's a beautiful thing that can happen when everyone is kind of thinking and feeling the same thing, but they're expressing it in different ways with different mediums. But in the end, we all come together and are like, yeah, that is what it is. That is the knot. That is the unrest. That is the feeling that I've been feeling and I haven't been able to put words to.
Yeah.
And so I have witnessed several times where a group of moms from very different backgrounds, parenting styles, all the things, can come together and say, wow, we are all on this journey together. And this is parenting, and this is lifelong, you know, like the concerns that keep you up at night are the same concerns that keep me up at night.
Or I have the same weird feeling you have, or and I think that's what I've seen too, right? Is like in any group, like, I don't, even if it's just like around whatever, right? Like, even if we're just kind of opening a box and just seeing what emerges for people, there is always something that will connect for somebody where they're like, oh, wow, like I feel the same way. I thought I was like the only person who had this like weird little knot. I thought this was, and it's like, and it is your own unique knot, but there's something sometimes usually like a piece of it that can be seen. And so that's part of where the healing happens, is like just kind of bringing that knot out, right? Rather than having it hidden away, bringing it out. The other thing too that I was thinking about before because I knew we were going to talk about this, is I was thinking about how, like, in my training, one of the like things that just like was like just fit, like when I learned this, I was like, oh my gosh, this is just validating everything I know as a human being, is that like, so let's just say we're going through a transformation or a transition, and we're trying to become something new. Like we talked about, we're like shedding our old, we're molting our old shell and becoming something new. Well, how do you let go, and what are you rebuilding? The notion of like, that we are actually transforming materials, that we are actually taking, like raw materials, paint, paper, color, scissors, sculpture stuff, whatever, we're actually physically transforming our physical world. And through that physical transformation of that, we too are transforming, right? There's like a back and forth around like the doing of that is where that unraveling of that knot comes. So if you want to transform this knot that's in your soul, you have to start doing things like poesis, all this sort of, I've talked about this in other classes, but we have to like make, to be, to create, to transform. We actually have to physically transform things in our environment, and there's like a feedback loop that happens, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's at the heart of it, right? Like the idea that, by the tactile or the body movement or the whatever is in the making, is that you are making something outside of yourself, and that something outside of yourself has messages from the inside of yourself. And so yeah, there's so much that can happen in the making, just in the making. Like when I was training for the expressive arts therapy, there was this one statement that just has stuck with me, and it's like, get out of the way of the art. Like the magic and the healing and all the things happen in the art.
Yeah. Yeah.
Leave it
Yeah.
all on
Because
the
it's like
table.
you're taking it out. It's like that out piece, right? It's like, just, you let the art just do what the art needs to do, and then you come back to it, right? It's like there's like get out of the way of the art. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And let it do the talking for you when you don't have the words. Or even when you do have the words. Sometimes I would still prefer to do it that way.
Yeah, for sure, right? Yeah, for sure. And when I think about people watching this who are like maybe in a place of transition or transformation in their lives, it's like, it's basically the scariest thing to do, to like want to like go to create. But what I will say too, in the time that I've done this, especially in the online platform, is people find me because they're like in transformation, they're like in transition, right? And they know intuitively that creating is going to support them through this transformation, right? People don't usually like seek me out when they're in like some happy, wonderful creative place in their life. They're seeking out like my work when they're like, okay, like I've lost my husband, right? Or I'm in a caregiving role for my husband, or I've become a mom, or I've my depression is really flared up, or my anxiety is really, I'm in a bad spot right now, or I lost my mom a while ago. They're in grief, or and they know that intuitively that creating is like what's going to help them heal, but it's also the scariest place to be, right? So then they're kind of like showing up, and then there's like this piece around the witnessing and the kind of working through those knots, that sort of thing. But that I think they come to it because they intuitively know that like physical making is how they're going to like remake themselves, right?
Absolutely. And there's two layers of vulnerability, I feel like, in the work that we do, is that it's about the showing up part, but it's about the art part. Like there are so many people who have come to me who've said like, I have not picked up a glue stick since I was 12.
Right.
Like it's not something that I do. It's not something that I'm totally here because I want to do it. But there's so many messages that we've received as little people about art and creativity and the value of it or the non-value of it.
Yeah.
And our abilities. And I feel like there's two kind of things that are happening parallel. It's like you're showing up to move yourself through something, but you're also showing up and showing someone else your art. And there's two things happening there, and it can be like double scary than say going to traditional talk therapy. And it's totally valid. Like both versions of transition and transformation are 100% valid, and each person I think is drawn to something that suits them. But I feel like in the arts there's a lot more happening there.
Yeah.
You're moving past a lot of messages.
Well, that nonverbal stuff too. Or like, I mean, the other pieces too is like what's happening in transformation is you're creating a new story for yourself. Your old story's gone, the end of chapter, and you're writing a new story for yourself. So you have to be willing to let go of some of those cognitions, those thoughts about, oh, I'm this kind of person, or I always do this. It's like, well, now you're not that kind of person, and now you don't always do that. So what's the new story we're going to tell ourselves, right? And so that cognitive piece, that talking piece sometimes can be limited because we have to like make a new story, and we have to find new words, and we have to find a new language for ourselves.
Absolutely.
It's funny when I was just like, when we were just talking to, I was just thinking back about like the major transitions that I've had in my life, and those transitions for me, I've always, and I'm sure this is most people listening here, I've always turned towards the arts, right? So like when I became a mother, like that period, just when baby was like that little, like that was like kind of one of biggest transitions in my life. And that's where I turned to my art. And that's where I started to kind of like be reborn, I would say, as I had actually let my art practice go for many years. And then I became a mom, and it kind of woke me back up. When I was divorced, I can remember like when I first was going through the throes of my divorce, I remember being like, just taking out like canvases and just being like, I don't know what to do. So I'm just going to like make marks on canvas. Right. And then, you know, where I'm at now in my life too, is I have a close family member who's going through some severe chronic health conditions. And so I'm like in anticipatory grief around that. Right. And I have turned to my art for that too. Like I have this knot. I don't know what to do. I don't know even how to share it in this world because I'm like, the grief feels so huge and so massive. And so I remember I had this moment where I was like really in it with my husband, and I was like, what would I do if I was one of my clients? Like, and then I was like, I would tell you to create. That's what I would do. So I've been having to like prescribe my own medicine to myself to be like, Rachel, create your way through this anticipatory grief, and it will support you when the grief comes. Right. So I don't know, like, I think we all kind of intuit, and you're doing that with your mothering too, right? Like,
absolutely. I'm like just last night, actually, I sat down with my paintbrush and my paints, my paper for the first time in, well, a little over 9 weeks, which is like a really long time when this is something that you live and breathe. I've done other things like in my art journal and other small, like I'm going to use the word smaller creative things. But last night was like, I took over the dinner table. The kids were sleeping. I had like a 30-minute window. and I just went there, and I wasn't happy with what I made, but the message that I took from that particular moment of I needed to transform some of the thoughts I was having, and in order to do that, I needed to make some ugly art. And so my ugly art, sitting here on the kitchen table still this morning, doesn't look so ugly this morning. And I think it's because I shed a little bit of that, the restlessness and a little bit of the overwhelm and a little bit of the exhaustion. I left it on the paper, and I went to bed and I slept, and I woke up this morning, and looking at them today is like, it's like different. I'm looking at them differently today because of that experience. Yeah. And had I not allowed myself that experience, coming from a new mom, like the setup and the cleanup and all the things that were involved in that 30 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel you.
Is, you know, it absolutely needed to happen. And like, I really resonate with what you said about turning to the arts in those moments of stress, anxiety, overwhelm, transformation, the in between, the linear space. It can like put on new glasses for you.
Yeah.
That's the metaphor I'm going to put on, is like, today I'm looking at life through a different pair of glasses.
Yeah.
And
Because you like went and transformed those materials, right? Like, and bit by bit, like sometimes it happens like in big things where your knot comes out and it's like, psh, right? But sometimes it's like, no, some of these knots, like we wiggled a bit here, we wiggled a bit here. And then like, yeah. Oh, that's such a lovely story to hear that you just even were able to do that last night. That's so great. So I think that's like a perfect spot for us to close too, because I think that's like full inspiration. So everybody like in transition or transformation, just think about your knot and think about how you can physically take it out into the world and start to like give it some wiggles. Think about how you can have a witness too, right? So if you are a mother or you know a mother, Kayla has lots of wonderful work. She does mindful mothering, online virtual workshops, that sort of thing. You're also, I don't know if I said at the beginning, but you're in Regina, Saskatchewan as well too. I'm not sure if that was in your bio or not. And what else do you have on your website that people can like come to and get some support with?
Ooh, I designed over this summer a free women's wellness toolkit. So there's 6 exercises there now that are free, that I'm looking to expand on. Mm-hmm. So 6 activities directed at exactly that. I'm knotting some of that stuff. I've directed them in specifically to areas of stress and overwhelm and just needing to get some color and shape on paper. They're short. I mean, if you're a well-endowed creative, you might spend an hour on something,
right.
But really they're designed that if you have 5 minutes, you can do it on a Post-it at your desk.
Yeah.
Like, so it's a wide variety of things. It's not directed directly at moms, but or women. I mean, I call it women's wellness just because that's my jam. Anybody could work on these exercises, and you can do them over and over and over again. And it's just, you could do it with a Post-it and a pen, or you could do it in your art journal with a table full of supplies. So
that's great. Women's Wellness Toolkit. Kayla Huszar. There's links to everywhere. And you also do like the mothering thing too. Obviously, there's lots of support. So people should go to Kayla's website. Kayla, your website's great. You're on Facebook lots, and you're also on Instagram lots. You do Instagram stories. So if you want to see more of cute Isaac, you should probably go and like just baby watch Isaac too. Watch him. So,
he's there.
Well, thanks so much, Kayla. That was so great to like have you in a place of transformation and transition, being able to talk to us about transformation and transition through the arts. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.